All right, well, welcome everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Jennifer Slutten and I'm the lead attorney for Protected Seas. Today I'm excited to talk to you about the Protected Seas Navigator, a guide to our regulatory seascape. I'd like to thank the UN Ocean Decade Laboratories team for allowing us to present today, and thank you all for joining. I'll be giving an overview of the Navigator, then our staff attorney, Claire, will give some examples of analyses that are possible with the database. And then finally, our director, Virgil Zetterland, will be giving a demonstration of the tool. And we'll follow all that up with any questions that you may have. Please submit your questions at any time through the Q&A tool at the bottom of the screen. All right. So let's begin with the recognition that ocean regulations, including marine protections, can be complex and hard to access. When we think about demystifying marine protected area regulations, we're trying to answer a simple question: what area of the ocean is legally protected? And by protected, we mean what types of activities are prohibited or allowed. And while that may seem straightforward, anyone who has worked in this field knows that to find and assess that information is incredibly complex. While no-take areas are critical, ocean management goes far beyond that, and the layers of regulation and their contribution to conservation can be very complicated. To quickly summarize what we have in our Navigator tool, we have the only database with comprehensive ocean regulatory information for over 80% of the world's oceans, and we aim to have reached global completion by the end of this year. Some examples of the information Navigator includes are fishing regulations, management plans, and species of concern, but there's much, much more in the database. We currently have over 18,000 MPAs and other managed areas included in the Navigator in over 109 countries. Protected Seas is a private organization based in California with a mission to improve ocean conservation through data and technology. We make this information freely available, and as we are not an advocacy organization, we can provide the underlying data to be used for a variety of purposes and interpretations. To create the Navigator, we needed a variety of expertise. Our team consists of lawyers, GIS specialists, software developers, and communications specialists, all bringing diverse backgrounds and specialties to the table for this immense effort. Early on, we partnered with the U.S. Department of Commerce's National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and have had a public-private partnership with them since 2015. As you may know, President Biden has set a goal of protecting 30% of both the terrestrial and marine space in the United States by 2030. And we are currently working on ways in which our tool can be used for this goal to contribute to the marine protection assessments. As I mentioned, we have reviewed over 18,000 MPAs for over 109 countries and territories with expected completion this year. Data is compiled in English and the official languages of each country. Each MPA includes a large set of information, which I will show in more detail in just a moment. The Navigator database is the culmination of over 6 years of research and development and is currently the only resource where you can find all this legal information in one place. What differentiates us from other MPA databases is our focus on legal protections. However, our data can be used for a multitude of purposes and analyses, which Claire will speak to in more detail. MPAs are not the only form of marine and coastal regulation. In most cases, the regulatory seascape consists of many legal instruments layered on top of each other. All of the regulatory areas in the Navigator database include the complete boundary, so you can click anywhere in the ocean and see just how many different layers of management there are in that spot. It's not unusual to have between 6 and 20 overlapping areas in any given ocean space. The Navigator map provides a clear depiction of marine protected spaces in a way that can be more easily understood than sifting through regulatory documents. Along with the suite of individual attributes we include in the database, like fishing gears, regulation summaries, purpose, and species of concern, we give each area a level of fishing protection score. This level of fishing protection score is based on the strength of fishing regulations within a boundary and is coded on a scale of 1 to 5. For those looking at specific activities or combinations of activities, our gear and activity information can be used. Navigator's data supports components of the regulation-based classification system and the recently released MPA guide and could be used to assist with assessments using these methods. We hope that as definitions around highly protected and other effective conservation measures evolve for the Sustainable Development Goals, Navigator can help assess national and global progress. While fishing regulations are an essential part of our database and how we evaluate MPAs, we know they only tell one part of the regulatory framework in a marine space. Our data has over 50 attributes, and we indicate the legal status, prohibited, allowed, restricted, or unknown, for over 25 different types of human activities like discharge, anchoring, entry, as well as extractive uses. We included this horrendogram, as a colleague in the UK calls it, and as an example of the complexity of ocean regulations in just one country. Navigator seeks to collaborate in order to distill and present this information in a way that is more understandable to both marine managers and policymakers, as well as the average citizen who just wants to enjoy the marine space. And here's a quick glance at a piece of our landing page when you use the Navigator. We will do a full demonstration soon, but I wanted to show you some of the basic information that you can access and find as you dig into the tool. I'll now hand you over to Claire, our staff attorney, to give a more in-depth look at the analysis we or you can create with our data.
Thank you, Jen. So we wanted to provide you with an example of some of the types of maps and analysis we can create for interested parties. To assist with the proposal of a new national marine sanctuary in the US, we created a suite of maps depicting the existing regulatory areas within the proposed boundary, including breaking them down by their designation type, as well as their responsible agency. Identifying the existing protections in this way can help provide policymakers, marine managers, and any other users with an idea of what additional protections are needed and what currently exists. We can also provide maps that speak to the regulation of specific gear types, like this map of current bottom trawling regulations in the proposed National Marine Sanctuary. We can provide these statistics on both percentage of the interested area, as well as in square nautical miles. These types of maps can not only inform the habitat and species protections currently in place, but whether there are existing ecological concerns in that area. This is an example of how our level of fishing protection score can be distilled to show what the overall regulatory protection of an area is. This map is created by using the highest level of fishing protection for each map point, called a hex grid analysis. This can inform where further conservation measures may be needed or where protection is already quite comprehensive. When undertaking marine spatial planning or other forms of assessment of the marine environment, we know how difficult it is to visualize current regulations as well as areas of ecological importance. This image of California kelp restrictions demonstrates how Navigator can create visual depictions of specific areas of conservation interest. This map not only shows the areas open and closed to kelp harvest, but the variety of lease statuses as well. We understand that regulations only tell part of the story when it comes to ocean management. We see the regulatory component as the necessary element to establishing a baseline of protection, but we know that things like monitoring and enforcement are also critical components. We hope ultimately to create a database that is useful for a variety of uses at many different scales. This can include national or global protection assessments, as well as ecological evaluations, permitting applications, or other conservation determinations. Most agencies lack all of this information in one central place, and we aim to increase efficiency in all of these types of evaluations. Here's a quick glance of where the US stands in our current evaluation of reaching their 30 by 30 goal. From this, you can not only see where the US stands in reaching that effort, but additionally where the distribution of that protected area is. By this assessment, the US is technically close to reaching their 30% goal. However, the vast majority of that protection is derived from the Northwest Hawaiian Islands and not very well representative of the ecology and species in US waters. We have completed assessments of the level of fishing protection for many other countries, like this example of the UK. And we are happy to create similar maps for any agencies or entities that request them. We hope these maps can provide critical information to policymakers as to where their country currently stands on the level of fishing protection when it comes to actual in-place regulations. Again, these assessments can be completed on a variety of scales. Again, this is one of the entirety of European waters, and we hope will inform future efforts for international ocean management. As we all know, the targets for the Sustainable Development Goal 14 are set to be updated. We hope Navigator can help inform the baseline of where global ocean protection currently lies, as well as assisting in the development of future targets and how to reach them. Our database includes more than just MPAs, as Jennifer said before. We've included a variety of other area-based conservation measures, or OECMs. We understand that the definition of OECMs and their potential inclusion in assessments of ocean protection is still under review at both the global and national level. The suite of information we provide on these areas can enable those conducting assessments to only include those OECMs that meet their particular definition. You can explore Navigator at mpa.protectedseas.net. And shortly, our director, Virgil Zetterlin, will give you a demonstration of some of the key figures. We do offer this information freely, but when used, we appreciate attribution as a professional courtesy and as a way for us to get the word out about the potential resource. So now I'll turn it over to Virgil for demonstration. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen and Claire, and welcome everyone to our webinar today. I'll spend a few minutes demonstrating our Navigator user interface, some example data, as well as some of our more advanced tools that are available. At mpa.protectedseas.net, anyone can do a quick dive into the marine protections in an area of interest. As you enter the map, you'll see many areas of blue and red. These are areas where fishing is either heavily restricted or areas that are fully protected or no take. To learn more about an area, just simply click on the map and you'll get a list of all the regulations that intersect your query. In this case, off the west coast of Mexico, there are 6 different regulations in play that we have in our database. To drill down and learn more about the specifics of each one, you can click into the details. For each area in our database, so over 18,000 areas and growing, we have complete information about the purpose, the management authority, a summary of the key regulations, including restrictions on activities, as well as notable exceptions, citations to the governing documents, as well as ways to report violations or contact managing authorities. Where possible, we also include links to the any official MPA website or area website, as well as the original regulation that we researched in doing this documentation. Our map is over 80% complete now on global MPAs. We're adding new countries very frequently as we strive to complete our global coverage by the end of this year. Other things you can do with this map are overlay things like marine charts, or specifically highlight where commercial or recreational fishing is prohibited. You can also change the base map if you want to compare marine protected areas to things like shallow water or coral reefs that might appear in satellite imagery. You'll note that this website is also phone friendly. So if you do go to this website on your phone, you'll actually get a version that displays well on both iPhone and Android phones and makes this information readily accessible in the field. Our data is available not only in English, but in over 22 languages. So you can also switch our map to any of our supported languages, and it will filter for the countries where we have MPA information in these other languages as well. We do also have a search capability. So if you have heard of an area name and you want to quickly find it on our map, just type it in and it'll help narrow your search. This map was originally intended to inform boaters, fishers, and ocean users about the regulations in their local waters on a global scale. Since then, use of the Navigator data has definitely taken off and gone more towards policy and analysis. Our cumulative regulations viewer is another way to look at this data. In this case, we're color coding by the number of fishing gears that are prohibited in each 10-kilometer square ocean hex. In our data, we code for 8 specific fishing gear. And so as we zoom in, we can see across all overlapping management how many total gear are prohibited at any one ocean space. If you're interested in understanding how a certain ocean space is regulated in terms of all these different activity restrictions, you can click on a cell and then open the regulation summary. In this case, this is the list of overlapping areas, including their maximum level of fishing protection score. But then we also have a grid of our fishing types as well as human activities, and for each area, whether we were able to determine if they were allowed, restricted, or prohibited. This is a really interesting way to see how ocean management intersects and how ocean management sometimes is additive in increasing the protection of an area, but other times not. So the Sea Sketch tool, again, is built in partnership with the University of California, Santa Barbara, and we've integrated the Navigator data into a special free tool so that anyone can see the current coverage by level of fishing protection in any of our EEZs. You can also create a free account on this platform and add new marine protected areas or propose protected areas and see how the coverage statistics change. If you'd like to use our data directly for analysis or other research, we offer that freely as well. Just reach out to us at info@ProtectedSeas or at any of our contacts. With that, we'll open it up to questions and discussion. Thank you very much.
As Virgil said, please feel free to enter any questions in the Q&A box, and I'll get started with our first questions. So the first question is, how do you keep the database up to date?
So we do a lot of legal research, and of course, as we go along, things can change, and we have a variety of ways that we stay up to date. In the US, we actually have alerts set up through a legal research tool. We also have contacts that we intermittently just reach out to see if anything has changed, and we do the latter kind of method more on the international scale, where we just have contacts throughout the regions and we reach out, and then finally we also just go back and re-research where needed. And frankly, a lot of the larger, more prominent MPAs, they're, news alerts are very helpful for this kind of stuff. And so there's just kind of a variety of ways that we stay up to date, but we take it very seriously.
How is the database different to WDPA, the World Database on Protected Areas?
So the WDPA is built using country submissions to the IUCN. So it represents the official database of marine protection worldwide as reported by each member state. In our research, we sort of start more from what we call a bottom-up approach. So we start our research by investigating or contacting directly each of the individual management authorities in a country, and then compiling a list of managed areas from the available regulations as well as other GIS boundary source. And so doing, we capture many more areas than are included in the WDPA under our broader lens of marine managed areas or areas with potential conservation benefit.
Do you include the high seas areas in your map? I'll start with Jen.
Sure. Yes, we do actually. We mapped the high seas a few years ago, and it includes kind of all kinds of areas that are both kind of officially designated and protected as far as that goes on an international scale, but also areas that are kind of designated without protection as of yet. So the kind of ecologically and biologically significant areas are on the map. So yeah, so we have a special high seas map. It's our regular website /high seas.
And why have you chosen to just evaluate fishing regulations? Jen, I think this will be you again as well.
Okay, sure. So the project started out kind of with the idea of having a tool that people who just kind of use the water mostly recreationally and with a view towards fishing could use. So a one-stop shop with those kind of regulations. And it still is our kind of guide. Looking for fishing regulations is still what we kind of go by, but we very quickly learned that when you look for fishing regulations, you also find other regulations and other activity restrictions, and having that all in one place is very valuable. So we didn't want to exclude everything else, and sometimes areas are protected without really regard to fishing. So it just didn't make sense to only focus on fishing, but it is kind of, again, our focus, but not our only source of information.
Thanks, Jen. Why does it show areas on the map that are overlapping? Virgil, can you address this?
So yeah, so that's, one of the misconceptions many people have about marine protected areas or sort of ocean management in general is that it's sort of these neat little squares or rectangles out on the ocean where all the rules are clear and it's one authority in charge. And what's in fact the case for many reasons, and it does differ around the world, but traditionally, fisheries are managed by one agency, natural resources and protection, environment might be managed in a second. Another agency manages mineral extraction and energy. And so, and of course, all of these are subject to laws passed by legislatures or other bodies of government. And what that results in is that they're often sort of layered management where you have rules that maybe originally were intended to apply to sort of different groups of users, all coming together, especially as we want to look at preserving the ocean and all the different types of activities that we need to be careful about.
How does the MPA guide relate to Navigator?
So the MPA guide is its own thing. It evaluates kind of MPAs from their proposed status through designation, through active management, and looks at many different types of activities and all different kinds of aspects of that, which is something our database has some components of that, but not every component of that. So like I mentioned, we have fishing, but not only fishing, we have all different kinds of activities. But we don't specifically look for each and every activity that you could do in an MPA. We also focus very heavily on the legal instrument, and won't include any areas that don't have regulations that are legally implemented. And that really is our focus. We think we see ourselves as, again, having information that is certainly could be useful for the MPA guide, but it's not kind of the same method. So so I guess that would be a short way to explain that.
And we just had one more question. How do you map the areas specifically? Virgil, can you address this?
So Yeah, in mapping areas, we have a couple different ways we get boundaries. Our preference is always to get boundaries from the management authorities that hopefully represent official interpretations of boundaries. Unfortunately, in many cases, that's not available. Around 20% of our database, our GIS team actually had to create the boundaries based on the legal descriptions that our research team found. When you peruse our data, that's one of the attributes in the data is we clearly identify the source for the boundary. And we certainly replace our digitized boundaries with official boundaries whenever they become available. It does look like we might have one more question in the chat as well about our mapping platform. As I demonstrated, we actually have this available on multiple platforms. We have a copy of the data in the ArcGIS ArcCloud system or ArcGIS online system for those using the Esri family of spatial products. We're also natively supported in the CSketch marine spatial planning tool. And our public maps are actually on open source platforms like Leaflet, Mapbox, and PostGIS. So we're happy to partner on custom applications. If someone would like to get the data directly in their workflow, we most likely already have something that will work for you.
All right, well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. And again, thank you to the UN Ocean Decade Laboratories for hosting us. Our contact information is available on the slide. Please feel free to reach out. Also, this will be recorded and made available as well. Thank you so much for attending today.